Prayers.
Almighty God, who in your infinite wisdom and providential goodness have appointed the office of leaders and parliaments for the welfare, state, and just government of humanity, we beseech you to look upon with your abundant favor these your servants, whom you have been pleased to call the performance of such important trust in this land. Let your blessing descend upon them here assembled, and grant that they may, as in your presence, try and consider all matters that come under their deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as promote your own and glory, and to advance the good of those whose interests you have committed to their charge. Amen.
Item 2 on the order paper, communication from the chair.
Honorable members, I welcome you to this sitting and thank you for making it today in the morning. Thank you for yesterday. We were able to accomplish something that had looked almost a challenge, but we were able to finish it with the help of the Honorable Member for Kalungu West. And all the honorable members helped in that process. So thank you very much. That should be the spirit. But I think we are going to need to look at the way we do business in this coming financial year, especially on the budget processes. A lot of things delayed in the committees. And we had to work towards at the end deadline, which was not good. If there were things that required to be changed, we were not able to do it. We did not have the time to do it. So it would help if next round of the cycle, the budget cycle, we try very much to finish everything in time, to give the budget committee sufficient time to finish the work, and then we have enough time to deal with the report of the budget committee and deal with all the figures and raise all the concerns and deal with those concerns and see how the budget can be more accommodative of all the issues that we try to raise in the committees, because all the members don't go to the committees. But if the matters were here and we debated the budget for 3 days, all the concerns would be raised and we would be able to deal with all of them to the satisfaction of all the members. But this time it has been exceptional, and I pray to God that this would be the last experience we have of this nature. We should learn from it and see how we can make it better for the next financial year. So thank you very much. And today we have things to finish with a previous financial year which Parliament did not close because of some challenges. The matter is coming up today. We should be able to close that financial year the way it's supposed to be closed. That is 2015-2016. There's a supplementary schedule that we need to complete so that the supplementary appropriation bill can be brought at any time, and then we also finish and close that financial year. For this year, we also have a schedule that we need to handle. It's also coming a little after we finish with the business that is before us. So thank you, members, for the resilience. And today we hope to be able to prorogue Parliament and send the House for a very short recess, because we start the next session of Parliament on the 6th. That's when the State of the Nation State of the Nation will be delivered by the President to now commence the second session of this Parliament. So let's try and roll up this business today, and we prorogue Parliament. Thank you.
Item 3.
No, there's Lamour District.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. I rise on a matter of national importance with regard to the people of Lamour. Right Honorable Speaker, my people in Lamour, their lives and the life of their livestock are at risk. The people of Agoro and Madipei have been attacked by the militia from southern Sudan. On the 5th of May, one man was killed from the village of Lutuku in Madipei at 10 p.m. He was picked out of his house and shot dead by militia from southern Sudan. On the 25th of May, still 2017, militia from southern Sudan came and raided the village of the central village in Kal Parish, Madipei, sub-county, and they went away with 30 herds of cattle. Right Honorable Speaker, from reliable sources from the RDC, the members of ASTU, that is the anti-stock unit, are deserting because of hunger. There is delayed distribution or delayed distribution of food, and because of hunger, most of these army men are deserting the army. On one occasion, the RDC went to one of the units where there were supposed to be 15 soldiers, but he found only 4 of them. Right Honorable Speaker, my prayer to the House is that there is need to increase operation capability of the ASTU members on the ground. And then 2, there is need to take food to these people in time such that the lives of our people are protected. Right Honorable Speaker, the RDC also tells me that whenever he calls for a security meeting, the ASTU members do not attend, and their claim is that they do not have transport. So I pray that the right ministry take this up, and then the ASTU people are provided with the transport such that our members are protected. Thirdly, Right Honorable Speaker, the security road that moves from Palabekogili to Lukung, Agoro, and Madipei has overgrown, and the district says that that is the work of the central government. I also appeal to your office that the UNRWA takes up the opening up of the security road from Agoro, Madipei to Lukung, so that the ASTU members and the army can have access to protect our people. I beg to submit.
Thank you. Government, this issue of Agoro, I mean, those areas are becoming complicated. Would you please?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and honorable colleagues. Mr. Speaker, if you permit us, we'll engage the Minister of Internal Affairs to get in touch with the honorable colleague and then come back and solve those issues.
If the honorable minister is coming here, I think it should be be alerted to come and deal with this issue when we are still here before.
Okay, sir.
Because this matters when we go on recess. How are we going to coordinate the follow-up?
Okay, sir.
Thank you. Kalungu West.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm also raising on the matter of national importance. In the 9th Parliament, Mr. Speaker, we had a lot of issues in the Committee of Education about Chambogo University, and we spent a lot of time. But yesterday, still there came out a strike of lecturers in Chambogo, and they are demanding their allowances, they are demanding money for research, examination, and all this. But Mr. Speaker, Chambogo has a lot of issues, and of all these issues, at least the issue of paying lecturers should not appear. And they have put down their tools, but already students have finished the exams. Now, who is going to mark if these people are not paid? And okay.
No, first finish what you are saying.
So, Mr. Speaker, this matter is very serious. But as a professional teacher, the issue of failing to pay lecturers, yet parents have paid, with all problems faced with Chambogo University, we should not be seeing this. And that's why I'm coming out that we want to get an answer. And the issue is in the Ministry of Finance. This time it is not education. Because they are saying, Permanent Secretary has refused to sign for these funds, yet he's on the consolidated fund. So what exactly is happening about Chambogo? Meanwhile, as I allow the information I was getting.
No, it's not information. She's going to contribute on her own.
Okay. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable.
Yeah, thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. And I want to thank Honorable Sewungu for raising this very important matter. Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable colleagues, the issue of Chambogo is also pertinent to me because I represent workers and the workers who have gone on strike because of the issues that he has mentioned, but also I was one of the honorable members that visited Chambogo on oversight, and we found that they had a lot of issues For example, the teaching staff they have is less than 50%, meaning that they need even money to make sure that they get part-timers right now. And so the money, when the money delays, because I'm aware that the money that has been released to them, the subvention, can only cover 2 months, that's January and February, but it was sent at the end of May. That means that for the 3 months, March, April, and May have not been catered for. So still, even when they get that money, we are going to still have challenging issues. Also, the other issue that we noted, that the Kiambogo University still has a lot of issues concerning sanitation, because we talked to the learners, and they are saying they are being restrained, and they feel enough is enough. They are likely also to go on strike, and therefore they were sounding a warning.
Thank you very much, my colleague. Right Honorable Speaker and members, the information I have is the effect of this strike ongoing is actually going to the students who had gone for both internship and school practice, those doing education. And it is actually, it means therefore that the expense on them is going to double, because they are not teachers, they are not lecturers to supervise internship and school practice. And it then warrants that the government should come up and address this before we have to spend more than what we could spend if we had not gone into that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Right Honourable Speaker, another reason as why these people have gone on strike is that they cannot get the money for research supervision. We cannot have any university without research, because the government sends very little and they cannot also get enough from abroad. So without research, then you find that the university is irrelevant. So something has to be done by the Ministry of Finance to make sure that we get the desired effects, the desired output as far as the university is concerned. I thank you.
Thank you. Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker and honorable colleagues, in order to improve accountability of university funds, we took a decision that the money they collect should be banked on a consolidated fund, and then it's appropriated, given to them on a quarterly basis. And that has been ongoing. But sometimes universities don't collect enough to run their affairs. So we sometimes give them advance, and as they collect, they pay back. So the situation at Chambogo, Mr. Speaker, is being handled, and we hope that by end of next week it should have been resolved.
Thank you. Bukoto.
Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker. I raise on a matter of national interest. Sometime last month, the 17th, the Uganda Coffee Development Authority came to my constituency in the trading center called Chinoni, and they closed 40 factories which are engaged in coffee production, and this one has made a standstill business of our business community within the area. The reason was being that they are producing coffee with high moisture content, which is against the recommended moisture content for export of coffee. But above all, the UCDA never sensitized the coffee producers and the coffee factory owners about this kind of high quality production of coffee. This one has led to my people of the constituency not taking their children back to school, because the only survival for their school fees as parents was coffee. And they have tried to dry up with coffee, and up to now, the factories are still closed. So I appeal to the House and to the Right Honourable Speaker, so that the UCDA opens immediately the factories, which are 40, and each factory employs on average about 50 people. So those are a lot of people now stranded. And on Monday this week, yes.
Thank you very much, colleague, for giving way. Right Honorable Speaker, this is not only happening in Bukoto South, it has been extended to Bukoto East, which I represent. After the closure of Masaka Cooperative Union, we are getting a lot of problems with the farmers not getting the benefit of Uganda Coffee Development Authority. The information I wanted to give is that the point you are raising is affecting most Ugandans.
Thank you, my colleague. Actually, the UCDA, they have a point in place, but they need to sensitize the factory owners what they really need regarding the quality of coffee. And at the same time, they should also go down to the farmers to encourage them to keep their coffee in a better way so that the quality of coffee is high. But closing down the factories, amounting to 40 factories at Kinoni Trading Center, it has harmed the parents. They are seated with their children not going to school because the school fees, they are now locked up in the factories because the coffee is not sold. I beg to move.
Thank you. Thank you. Government on this matter of coffee, closure of coffee factories.
Mr. Speaker, as we have handled the issue of the Honorable Kuliguri's the issue on security, we are going to call the Minister of Agriculture so that he can brief the House before we close today.
That will also be today. In the course of today, let's get these responses so that the people can know the way forward on this matter. Honorable Member, you need to consult with the Speaker before you stand up to raise any matter of the type you are about to raise. So please, I need to know what you're going to talk about, but we cannot do it here now. Please. Let's. I think if we are able to go to the afternoon, you will have consulted with the Speaker, then you can raise it in the afternoon, okay? Let's handle it that way. Next item. Procedure?
Mr. Speaker, about a month ago, you instructed the Minister in charge of Environment to come up with a statement regarding the degradation of Busega wetland along Masaka Road. Since then, we have not heard from the Minister, but the degradation is continuing.
We are not getting statements because of what we are doing right now, but there is a pile of statements that are ready for presentation to Parliament. But you know the situations we are in right now. We are trying to finish with what we are doing now, then we can deal with all those things that have been pending. Next item.
Item 3A. Item 3, statement 3A. Statement on the forthcoming Solidarity Summit.
Is it going to be the Right Honourable Prime Minister or the Deputy Premier? The Prime Minister is coming. Next item.
3B, the status on implementation of the assurances.
Chair, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Right Honourable Speaker. Honourable members, I salute all of you. I am Fungaro Kapsasan, Chairperson, Committee on Government Assurances. This statement is uploaded into the iPads. Right Honourable Speaker, the statement is provided to you in accordance to rule number 1673. Methodology. In coming up with this statement, we compiled and categorized all government assurances by sector and by region. We carried out oversight visits in the selected districts of Buyende, Kaliro, Kamuli, Tororo, Busia, Nakaseke, and Luero to assess the level of implementation of government assurances in those districts. We also held meetings with the ministers and officials from the ministries of Works and Transport, Health, Water and Environment to discuss the level of implementation of assurances that fall within their respective sectors. We also interacted with members of parliament to receive updates about the implementation of government assurances from their respective constituencies. Some members actually gave us written statements to that effect. Committee workload. The committee inherited a huge workload of assurances dating from as far back as 1986 to 2016. However, the committee has been considering assurances from 1986 to 2014, given the heavy backlog. We assumed first come, first served. We wanted to start from the beginning and consider up to 2014. Others are being processed. A summary of, the details of all the assurances are provided in an annex, which is in your document. It's a fairly big document, but if your iPad can handle the download, you will see it there. For purposes of summary, we have given a table here giving the number of assurances per sector. Works and Transport has the largest number, followed by Energy, Education, Health, Agriculture, Water and Environment, Local Government, etc. Observations. During its scrutiny of the outstanding assurances, the committee focused on the sectors with the most assurances unimplemented, and these are Works and Transport, Health, Education and Sports, Energy, Agriculture, Water and Environment. It noted that most assurances had been pending for more than 10 years, and none of the ministries had implemented a third of the assurances pledged under them, citing inadequacy of funding. See details in the table below. An annex is attached. There is a table here. For example, if you look at the water and environment, with 48, they implemented only one, which forms 2.1%. With the health, they implemented only 14 out of 136, and the list continues. This information is available with us. We collected from the responses which the ministries, the ministry officials, the ministers gave us when they appeared before us. Number 2. Most assurances had not been implemented at the time of the committee oversight visits in the districts. For example, in Buyende, out of the 18 assurances within that district alone, only one had been implemented. And Kaliro district had only, out of 17, none. Actually, none was implemented fully. We found only one which was still being implemented, though it was a good one. The road connecting Kaliro with Palisa through Saka Bridge. There is no well thought out sequence for the implementation of outstanding assurances. Some assurances that date as far back as 1986 have never been implemented, never been touched. And yet, recently made assurances were being implemented. For example, the work on the tarmacking of Kapchora Queen Swam Road has never been started. Yet, this pledge was made in 1986, 31 years ago, by His Excellency the President, compared to the Kagamba Ishaka Road, pledged in 2014, and works were completed by the end of 2016. This is according to the report we got from the ministry.
Please, and one else.
Honorable Speaker, I request for just 2 more minutes.
Proceed.
Problems with those which were even attempted in being implemented. For example, in Kaliro district, the Saka Bridge we talked about, much access was good. It has not yet been completed and it was supposed to be tarmacked. Buyende district, an ice plant to be constructed in Buyende district was started but abandoned without being completed after sinking into that project over 2 billion shillings. Some of the machines which were supplied there were defective. The ice plant, the generator, 3-phase, is not working. Some of the things are actually missing. In Nakaseke district, this is very painful. His Excellency, the President, pledged to rehabilitate Nakaseke Hospital in 2015. When the committee visited the project, it was noted that the implementation of this assurance was in progress. However, the work was characterized by A, alteration of the initial plans and designs, B, substandard works and materials. For example, the iron seats given were substandard and actually rejected. Some of them were taken back to the supplier. Very poor workmanship with several defects, including peeling off of roof, the iron seats, the joints, the floor had cracks, the solar pump installed with a huge capacity of solar but cannot pump water. Another problem is with loans. Most of the assurances, especially with the big budgets, are funded with loans, but loans have a lot of defects. Loans with defects are provided here in a list you will see in your statement. Challenges. Right Honourable Speaker, the committee faces challenges in its work. This is as a result of gaps in the law and the rules of procedure, parliamentary rules of procedure. There is, for example, lack of a comprehensive government assurance standard, including benchmark, yardsticks, norms, gauge, criterion, specification, scale of measurement. This has brought us the problem of asking, what does the ministry consider in selecting an assurance to be implemented? Look at this example of Swam Road, this one of Kapchora. A pledge made in 1986, up to now, 30 years down the road, and you have others which have been implemented. What is the criterion for selecting? There is also a problem of impunity and abuse of public trust. When a promise is made, you win the public trust. People say, okay, continue. Government, you're okay, go ahead. But now, when you have taken the trust of the people, you don't pay back. It appears these statements become like a deception and statements of tricksters. Yes, yet they're supposed to be made by a government, respected and honored by the people. Recommendations. To address the challenges faced by the committee recommended as follows. Rules 167, 168, 63, and 210 of the rules of 211 of the rules of procedure, and section 11(1) of the Anti-Corruption Act 2009 should be amended to create the necessary remedies as follows. Amending rule number 167, the functions of the Committee on Government Assurance and Implementation, sub-rule B. This is to provide for monitoring and evaluation standards.
Chair, did you submit that particular one to the Rules Committee?
Yes, all this we submitted to the Rules Committee. We had even, Right Honourable Speaker, we requested for permission from you, which you granted, for a retreat which we held in Mbale. It was extensively discussed, and all this was submitted to the Rules Committee, except that we have not got the feedback. They are there in the report. Okay. Recommendation number 2. Make funds available for implementation of government assurances timely. Quite often we hear, no funds, no funds. But if you look into the budget, Right Honourable Speaker, there are areas where you could pick money, especially from the sector of State House, Office of the President, because mostly it's the President making these pledges to the people and the ministers on behalf of the President. Now, why does the Office of the President budget for non-wage and development budget, taking a lot of money in the sector, but forgets to budget for this assurance which he made himself? This puts the president into ridicule. Sometimes when he goes and people ask you, Your Excellency, but it is you, when you speak, you are final, we're supposed to trust you. You make people lose trust in the president. So, monies who are being gotten from non-wage development budget, classified expenditure in the area of State House, Office of the President, Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Internal Affairs, particularly police. We collected this, we saw it comes to a total of approximately 7 billion. If it was relocated to the implementation of government assurances, we would be moving very far. Government officers responsible for poor implementation of government assurances and the private companies contracted to do the work should be taken responsible for shoddy work. This is one case in the Ministry of Health, Right Honorable Speaker. The case of Nakaseke Hospital, even when money is made available, you see the work doesn't go to the expectation, partly because of supervisory problems from the Ministry of Health, changing of designs. Then also there is this problem of the contractor. How do you pick substandard materials from the supplier and then you bring to put there? Such companies should be blacklisted and punished if found guilty. Government should look also into the problem of loans. These loans with defective problems, especially mainly from counterpart funding, should be addressed so that once a government assurance made to the people and money gotten through loans is started to be implemented, there is no stopping of the project because of problems of counterpart funding. You can look at the disbursement of loans, which we have given here. Finally, public trust is the foundation of any democratic government and should not be abused in any way. So there is great need to sensitize, mobilize, and organize the general public through, for example, public meetings, radio talk shows, and TV talk shows, to empower them so as to hold the leaders and the government responsible, accountable for promises they make and for any abuses of public trust. Therefore, Right Honorable Speaker, Parliament as a whole and the members of Parliament individually in their constituencies are hereby requested to fully support the committee in the next program we are going to take to sensitize, organize, and mobilize the general public outside there to hold government responsible for the promises they make. We found in Buyende the pain of the people, but many of them did not know how to go about holding government accountable for the promises made and not implemented. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I pray that you support the Committee of Government Assurances. It is because it is about you. Some of these pledges are in your constituencies. If you strengthen this committee, you support, then Right Honorable Speaker, even in Omoro, I'm sure there are things there. Support us to support the Omoro people. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable members, this is one of those reports that is required by rules of procedure, that at least in one session, the Committee on Government Assurances should file a report in the House. And we're almost missing out on that until we made possible. Honorable members, there was a discussion on this the last time the matter came, and there was the question of what amounts to government assurance. And there was a distinction being made, I don't know how far we went with this, whether a president making a pledge in some village in the country becomes a government assurance. Because if that were to be the case, then the Committee of Government Assurance will not be able to do anything, because there are many and they are scattered and they're all over the place. A government assurance, by definition, in the Commonwealth, is that assurance that is given to Parliament. That assurance is to Parliament, not to anybody else. So if a statement is made somewhere, you have to find a way of bringing it and it is made in Parliament. Most people in the Commonwealth, if a pledge is made somewhere, they come and use the Prime Minister's question time to extract an assurance from government, and then it becomes an assurance to Parliament. That is, the smart people do that. They come and they say, Right Honorable Prime Minister, there was this issue that happened like this, and then if the Prime Minister is aware and all those things, then they can make a commitment to the House, then it becomes a government assurance within the meaning of how it is understood in the Commonwealth. Then like that, Parliament can pursue it because it's on the record of Parliament. It is easier to pursue. But if you are to go to Buyende and all those, and what did he say? Then you are going to get even what he did not say. And that can be very complicated. Because if you went and called a meeting and say, when the president was campaigning here, what did he pledge to do? You are going to end up with 100 pledges, and yet some of them may not have been even made at all. So thank you very much. We'll extract this. Ask the clerk to extract this and forward to the Director of Government Business to see how the follow-up can be done. Then they can come back to the House at a later day and tell us the steps that have been taken on those assurances that were captured by the record of Parliament. Thank you. Next items. The Prime Minister is here now. So
Item 3A, statement on the forthcoming Solidarity Summit.
Right, Honourable?
Right Honourable Speaker, I'm making a short statement to this August House on the forthcoming Solidarity Summit. Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to brief you and the honourable colleagues on the forthcoming Uganda Solidarity Summit on refugees that will be held in Kampala from 22nd, 23rd of June 2017. And this will be at Speak Resort at Munyonyo. I wish to thank this August House for having authorized the government to borrow $50 million from the International Development Association of the World Bank Group to support the development of response to displaced impact project in the Horn of Africa. The project is an important milestone in improving the livelihood of refugees and also of host communities. It is important, honorable colleagues, to be updated on the purpose, objective, and preparations for the summit, so that in turn you can inform the various stakeholders that get in touch with you about this summit. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, the summit is convened jointly and also hosted by President Yoweri Museveni and UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, with the support of the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Filippo Grandi. The summit is a follow-up of the New York conference that took place in September 2016, at which President Museveni called on countries and development partners to avail resources for countries that are carrying the burden of hosting refugees within the comprehensive refugee response framework. The main goal of the Uganda Solidarity Summit on refugees is to support and strengthen our country's progressive and transformative approach to refugee protection. This will be through mobilizing new funding to meet the ever-increasing cost of meeting the humanitarian and long-term needs of the growing number of refugees and support to the host communities. Specifically, the summit aims at achieving three things. The first one is to mobilize significant new funding towards responding to the urgent humanitarian and development needs of refugees and host communities, as well as supporting the ongoing resilience initiatives. The required amount for the next 4 years is estimated at $8 billion, translating to $2 billion per year. The second objective of the summit is to showcase Uganda's refugee management model that integrates refugees issues in the national development agenda. And the last one, which is number 3, is to build new partnerships, investments, and innovation for the benefit of refugees and host communities. So, Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, as you may be aware, Uganda currently ranks among the top refugee hosting communities in Africa and the world. During the second half of 2016, a large movement of refugees from South Sudan more than doubled the refugee population from 500,000 to now over 1.2 million refugees in our country. On average, Uganda has been receiving 2,000 refugees per day for the last 6 months. The above numbers are placing a huge strain on our already stressed ability to cater for the food, water, sanitation, health, and education needs of the refugees and host communities. Yet, we have to keep our borders open to our brothers and sisters who are forced to flee their homes and countries due to war, starvation, violence, and also persecution. Uganda maintains an open border policy and approach which provides refugees with the land to till, education, and a chance to work. But the continued influx is putting pressure on the economy and infrastructure, as well as the environment. We maintain this approach because we know that no one chooses to be a refugee. Not so long ago, many of us were fleeing Uganda to countries such as Kenya, Rwanda, Tanzania, DRC, Sudan, Zambia, Europe, and North America because of the turbulence that our country went through. Many of us know all too well what it is like to have your family, your friends, relatives, and the community torn apart and separated by violence. Right Honorable Speaker and colleagues, preparations for the summit are already in high gear. On 9th of May this year, we officially launched the public awareness campaign about this Solidarity Summit. While in London, during the conference on Somalia last week, President Yoweri Museveni and the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres held discussions about this summit. With the pressure of the increasing numbers we are currently hosting, we call upon the international community to endeavor to match our efforts towards people who have lost the protection of their home countries. It is critical that refugees and host communities are provided with an environment in which they coexist in safety and also in dignity. That's why this forthcoming Solidarity Summit is important for raising awareness and mobilizing additional resources for Uganda to adequately continue responding to this humanitarian situation. We are hoping that through the generous giving of governments, foundations, and private sector and other agencies, we will be able to raise the 2 billion from the summit. That is the short-term immediate funding gap we are currently facing for 1 year. The summit will be the start of sustained efforts to continue raising funds to meet the development needs of the refugees and of the host communities. We expect the summit to bring together heads of government, heads of UN agencies, and heads of other regional and international organizations, foundations, humanitarian agencies, philanthropists, business people, and NGOs. During the summit, we will also discuss finding lasting solutions to the root causes of displacement, such as war and violence, that force people to flee their homes and their countries. Right Honourable Speaker and colleagues, I thank you for listening.
Thank you very, very much, Honorable, Right Honorable Prime Minister, for this statement on the forthcoming. I think we did our bit yesterday when we dealt with the loan that we were required to deal with. We finalized that would be the contribution of Parliament. I did not hear you mentioning Parliament among the list of the people, categories of people to participate in this summit. Maybe you should actually deliberately also have some members, especially specified committees, to be there so that they follow up from the beginning. When the matter comes here, you have people who already understand the issues, then we can be able to proceed. Yes, yes. Obongi.
Yeah, thank you, Right Honourable Speaker, for this opportunity. I also thank the Right Honourable Prime Minister for this statement about the Solidarity Summit, more so to raise funds for the management of the refugees and the host community affairs in Uganda here. But Right Honourable Speaker, the problem we face is not only about lack of funds. I come from Obongi, and we have refugees in Obongi. As we prepare for this summit and possibly raise the funds necessary, we should take note of the following. One, the framework, policy framework for the management of the affairs of the refugees is lacking or defective. What we have been shown as the policy framework for Uganda, the Uganda refugee policy, is a draft which has not been submitted even to the committee which handles matters of refugees, which is the Committee for Presidential Affairs. And as members of Parliament from West Nile, under the West Nile Parliamentary Caucus, we looked into these problems. We attempted to organize a meeting bringing together all the stakeholders, including the Office of the Prime Minister, the Minister for Disaster Preparedness and Refugees, and all the stakeholders from UNHCR, local government, sub-county, and the local community. The problem of the policy framework for Uganda should be put in order. Number two, down there is also need for a memorandum of understanding between all the stakeholders involved. Some of the stakeholders who play one of the key roles are not recognized, they're not even involved. For example, the people who give the land. In West Nile, land is owned by the communities. In Western Uganda, land used for providing service to refugees, we are informed, are government gazetted refugee settlements. So the role of the community in West Nile need to be included in this through a memorandum of understanding, for example, stating the terms and conditions under which land is given for the refugees, the rights of land ownership during and even after the refugees have left. This is to address fears of land grabbing. Right Honourable Speaker, we have experienced 3 times of hosting refugees from the same country, South Sudan. During the Anyanya War, Anyanya 1, during the SPLM war with the Khartoum, and during this SPLA war, the current one. But in the previous one, after the refugees left, we saw people emerging, claiming ownership of the refugee settlements, including property which was left there by the service provider organization, UNHCR and others, and OPM. For example, in my office, I have a document like this, a profile of a farm called Itula Mixed Farm. Somebody submitted a document to a bank to obtain a loan with securities as the land of the refugee settlement, the buildings, the warehouses, the school, those things which were left during the time of the refugee hosting. So the owners of the land were amazed to find someone claiming ownership of the land which was given only for the Prime Minister or the government of Uganda to use for hosting refugees. We fear the recurrence of the same. Secondly, the refugees and the host community live together, Honourable Speaker. Actually, it is like I have any additional village in my Obongi constituency. They use the same roads, the same health centers, the same facilities generally. But if no proper provision is made to take care of the host community in terms of drugs, ambulance services.
Honorable, because this is information about a summit. Can we do it properly? Can we task the Prime Minister after the summit, whatever they have discussed in the summit, and I'm asking him to invite our Committee on Presidential Affairs to be part of that discussion. He can then come back to the House and brief us. Then we can have a discussion on all these issues in a more involved way. Because this housing is not sufficient to carry the issues we are raising.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Maybe you summarize this by saying, as we prepare for the summit, let us put our house in order. Addressing those details. We need to do this because we can get the money, and if we are not strong, corruption is there. The UN agencies, the NGOs are not supervised well. You may get leakages down here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Please, please. Why don't we take the guidance I've given? Please. Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, first I want to thank the Parliament for yesterday passing the law for the host communities. You remember when I was making a presentation here on the World Bank Day, I did bring up these matters. I think the other group that the Prime Minister needs to invite is us in the World Parliamentary Network on the World Bank. If we would be able to engage at that level. But also the issues which were raised yesterday in that discussion here, in the discussions that we are going to have in this Solidarity Summit, is the issue of increasing the funding for the host communities. It came out yesterday here because we heard from the members here who were really opposed. They say, can we increase the funding for the provision of services to the host communities? I think those are key issues that you need to involve in the summit. Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
Honourable members, please. I have guided on this matter. Let's wait for the Prime Minister to come back and we'll have a discussion when it is on the order paper that we are going to discuss issues of refugee. We have committed ourselves, we have passed the money. They're going to have a summit like that. We'll have a framework where we can have a discussion. Please, we have business that is urgent. Let's go to them. Please, I beg you. Thank you. Next item. Yes, honourable members, I'll alter the order paper to accommodate a document that has to be laid by the minister. Please, let me do this first.
New item,
Laying of
papers. The addendum to wage supplementary schedule 2 and statutory revision of the pension budget for financial year 2016-2017.
Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker and honourable colleagues, I beg to lay an addendum to wage supplementary schedule 2 and statutory revision pension budget for the financial year 2016-17.
Let the records capture that. It stands committed to the appropriate committee on the budget to come back if they're going to examine the supplementaries and come back with that and see how we can advise the House to proceed. Yes. Next item. Yes, Honourable Member for
Thank you very much.
Municipality.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think you should ask the Prime Minister when he's coming to brief us, because the issues of refugees, Mr. Speaker, is very touchy. I am a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee who went to the border with Sudan. The Sudanese who came to Uganda as refugees are taken over land and were held hostages in Uganda. So the Prime Minister should come as soon as possible, Mr. Speaker, so that we discuss these issues of refugees in Uganda. Thank you very much.
We are going by your guidance of as soon as possible. Next item.
Item 6, motion for presentation, consideration and adoption of the report of the Sector Committee on Education and Sports on complaints about...
No, we are going to item 4. Item 4, please.
Item 4, motion that the House resolves itself into a committee of supply to consider the supplementary expenditure schedule 2 for the financial year 2015-2016.
Honorable members, before this motion is moved, there is a situation about this particular issue. I'm sure members are hearing strange figures, strange dates, 2015, 2016. Those are very strange dates today. The reason is simple, that supplementary schedule should have been handled last year at the beginning. What happened is the issue of formation of government. Remember the debate where they were saying who is going to read the budget, and they say they are going to ask a member of parliament for Chibahale to come and read the budget. That debate was there. So there was no proper coordination in the cabinet, because there was no cabinet then. So that these matters could have been brought to parliament. There was a second mistake, that even the instructions to the clerk, which should have come earlier, the technical people did not bring it to parliament. So it ended up coming in December of that last year, and therefore it posed this problem. Parliament could not pronounce itself on those estimates. That's why we are coming back to this. So I'm going to ask the minister to move the motion, then the committee will report, then we see how to deal with this matter. That's the background I wanted to give, so that you know why it is 2015, 2016, when we should be dealing with 2016, 2017. Yes.
I think we were thinking alike, because I had that copy of that document. When I read it was received on the 20th of December, 2016, but laid on the table on the 10th of January, 2017. I don't know whether there are any legal issues, because passing the supplementary for 2015, 2016 in 2017, I don't know whether there are any legal issues, and if they are there, how are we addressing them? And I think to the Minister of Finance and to the leader of government business, I think because this time of the 20th December and this January, we all understand, but what measures have you taken to address it such that it does not repeat?
Can we deal with that now in the debate?
Okay.
Please. Honorable Minister, can you move it?
Mr. Speaker and honorable colleagues, I beg to move that the House resolves itself into a committee of supply to consider the supplementary expenditure schedule 2 for the financial year 2015-2016.
Honorable members, the motion that I propose for your debate is the motion seconded. Sorry. Seconded by Kinkizi East, Muhaguzi, West Budama North, and Ngora. And then Tororo. Yes, please speak to your motion. There was no secondment from this side? Yes, member for Kasilo.
And Honorable Chivumbi.
Member for Butambala.
Mr. Speaker, this supplementary was meant for additional expenditure amounting to 18.8 billion, purposely to cater for wage shortfalls during that financial year. As you have said, because of the circumstances that pertained at that time, when cabinet was forming, we could not bring this in time. And to that, Mr. Speaker and honorable colleagues, on behalf of government, I want to register apologies to this House, and also to say that in future, this will not be repeated. I beg to move.
Thank you. Honorable members, this matter was referred to the committee, and the committee can report to kick off the debate. Then I'll take Kasilo to start. Let me chair committee. Briefly, please.
Right, Honorable Speaker and honorable members, as you may be aware, Parliament approved a total budget of 23.972 billion for financial year 2015-2016, of which 16.1 billion was appropriated by Parliament under Appropriation Act, and 7.7 billion was total expenditure. We recall that under Supplementary Schedule 1, Parliament approved expenditure of 870 billion and a statutory revision of 170.3 billion. This supplementary expenditure amount to 3.6% of the total budget by then. Like you've indicated, Right Honourable Speaker, on December 16th, the Minister of Finance submitted to Parliament through Office of the Clerk the Supplementary Schedule Number 2, 2015-16 for approval by Parliament as required under the Constitution and Public Finance and Management Act. The same was laid on table on 10th January by Right Honourable Minister of State for Finance in charge of planning, and it was referred to the committee. Mr. Chairman, Right Honourable Speaker, justification for this supplementary, the Minister informed the committee that additional supplementary expenditure under Schedule 2 amounts to 18.6 billion, was purposed to cater for wage shortfall at the end of financial 2016-17. There's an annex attached. This came as a result of, one, transfer of employees by Minister of Education to local government, votes without adequate budget provision, two, recruitment of health workers by local government under instruction of Minister of Health, for which no budget appropriation had made, salary enhancement for headship of secondary schools and harmonization of primary head teachers and their deputies to salary scale of 4 by Minister of Education, payment of salary arrears for financial 2014-2015 against 2015-16 budget without a budget revision. The committee notes that the practice of moving employees, recruitment of new staff and staff promotion, and the payment of salary arrears are a decision that should have been anticipated during the process of preparing the budget for 2015-2016 in order to avoid the need for a supplementary. The Minister explained that in the future, efforts will be put into consideration by decentralizing the system, wage system, to eliminate wage overruns, and disciplinary action would be taken against any accounting officer who would recruit staff without corresponding wage bill. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, we looked at the sources of the supplementary. The committee noted that the supplementary expenditure was financed by funds appropriated in the budget. The supplementary requirement of 18.62 billion under this schedule is a technical supplementary as a result of reallocating funds across votes, but within the overall wage bill. Recommendation. The committee observes that the expenditure request to meet wage shortfall was generally required and justified on account of avoiding salary arrears and compromising the welfare of the beneficiary. In short, it is a statutory expenditure. However, there are two fundamental legal requirements for this expenditure. One, which does not comply with one, the expenditure being beyond the mandatory threshold of 3% of the approved budget, violates amended section 25(1) of Public Finance and Management Act 2015. Number two, laying on table the supplementary estimate was made well beyond the mandatory 4 months after the money was spent. That's under section 25(2) of the amended PFMA Act. The explanation given by the minister for the lack of compliance in above is that by June 13th, cabinet ministers were not sworn in, and in order to avoid accumulation of areas, the PSST had to request the Attorney General to allow this supplementary expenditure. Conclusion. The need for funding wage shortfall was indeed justified. The explanation given by the minister notwithstanding, the supplementary expenditure is not compliant with the provisions of the law. Right, Honourable Speaker and Honourable Members, the committee therefore is constrained to approve the supplementary request schedule number 2 of financial year 2015-2016, amounting to 18.862. I beg to submit. Right, Honourable Speaker, we have a minority report attached, but since we are constrained, I don't know what the minority report will talk about. But it's attached to the report. I beg to submit.
Yes, there's a minority report. Can the mover of the minority report please report?
Right Honourable Speaker, I will be as brief as possible. And I think this is, when it is applauded, I'm going to speak for what is on our iPad. Our areas of dissent are basically two. One, failure to satisfy the requirement of the Public Financial Management Act. B, non-compliance to the supplementary criteria. Descending observation. The explanation by the minister responsible for finance that there was a delay to submit the supplementary request to Parliament because Cabinet had not been sworn in by 13th June 2016 is unjustifiable. Right Honourable Speaker and members, the accounting officer for Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, Secretary to Treasury, was on duty, and the office of the clerk to Parliament remained open. Besides, Parliament approved the appointment of the Prime Minister, who is the leader of government business in Parliament, on 14th June 2016. Therefore, there was no technical or political vacuum. Hence, the Secretary to Treasury should have submitted to Parliament the supplementary Schedule 2 for 15-16 to be laid by the Prime Minister within the mandatory 4 months as required by Article 156, subsection 2 of the Constitution. Section 2 of the Public Finance Management Act amended and Regulation 18 of the Public Finance Management Regulation. These provisions demand that supplementary estimates showing the sums required or spent shall be laid before Parliament, and in case of excess expenditure, within 4 months after the money is spent. The use of the word shall in both the Constitution and the Public Financial Management Act and the regulation connotes compulsive language. The required action is mandatory. The use of the compulsive word shall rather than the permissive may imposes a mandatory obligation on the minister to submit the supplementary expenditure schedule within 4 months after use of the money. The issue of compulsive nature of the word shall in the legislation has been interrogated by the East African Court of Justice in Attorney General of Uganda versus Tom Chakurenda, case stated number 1 of 2014, where it is found to be imposing a mandatory obligation. It is important, therefore, to highlight that the Supplementary Schedule 2 for the year 15-17, which was considered by the committee, was submitted to Parliament on 20th December 2016 by Secretary to Treasury. A copy of the submission letter is attached in Appendix 1. The supplementary schedule was laid by the Minister of Finance on 10th January as indicated on the submission letter in Appendix 1. This was 6 months after the money was spent, contrary to the 4 months as required under Article 15 and Article 156, subsection 2 of the Constitution, Section 25 of the Public Finance Management Act, and Regulation 18 of the Public Finance Management Regulations. Based on the above, the Secretary of Treasury, being the accounting officer, should have submitted to Parliament the supplementary schedule within the mandatory 4 months. This is premised on the fact that the Secretary of Treasury is responsible and personally accountable to Parliament for activities of a vote as provided for in Section 45, subsection 5 of the Public Finance Management Act. Submission of supplementary expenditure schedule in time to Parliament is one of the activities of the Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development. Hence, failure by the Secretary to Treasury as the accounting officer to submit the supplementary schedule to Parliament within the mandatory time contravenes the Constitution and the Public Finance Management Act. In light of the above, Parliament is duty-bound to 1. Reject the supplementary request for the action of the Minister introducing the supplementary schedule 2 of 15-16, 2 months after the constitutional and regulatory deadline is unconstitutional. Therefore, illegal as per Article 2 of the Constitution. The article stipulates that the Constitution is the supreme law of Uganda, and any action inconsistent with any provision of the Constitution is void. B. To treat the money spent as additional supplementary expenditure as a loss of public funds in line with the Regulation 18, subsection 7 of the Public Finance Management Regulation 16 and Section 80 of the Public Finance Management Act for expenditures the expenditures were not made in accordance with the law. Hold the Secretary to Treasury responsible, personally accountable to Parliament, and require him to make a good of the loss of funds as required under Section 45, subsection 2, Section 79(1)(m), 79(2), and 80 of Public Finance Management Act. 3.21, non-compliance to the supplementary criteria. Right Honorable Speaker, much as these were payment that were meant to go towards the payment of salaries for the staff that were recruited in local government, we hesitate to note that the Public Financial Management Act says and states that any payment in a supplementary must be unabsorbable, an expenditure that cannot be funded through environment. 2, it must be unavoidable, an expenditure that cannot be postponed to the next financial year. C, unforeseeable, an expenditure that was foreseen by a vote at the time of preparation of the budget of the vote, or an expenditure that should be included in the budget of the vote. Therefore, the recruitment of staff is not unforeseeable, is not unavoidable. It's something they ought to have planned before and known they will need to do that. To treat it as a supplementary is to go against the regulation that were passed by the Minister of Finance and what this Parliament decided when we made the new Financial Management Act. In light of Regulation 18 and 16 of the Public Financial Management Regulation 16, supplementary schedule fails the test because its items are clearly foreseeable and unavoidable. Hence, transfer of employees, recruitment of health workers, salary enhancement, and payment of salary arrears do not satisfy the supplementary criteria. Unfortunately, the majority committee report does not indicate whether the expenditure did satisfy the supplementary criteria. In conclusion, Right Honorable Speaker and members, Parliament should reject the supplementary Schedule 2 for the financial year 2016 because it does not conform to the legal requirement of the Constitution and the Public Financial Management Act. In line with subsection 45, subsection 5, 78, subsection 2, 79, subsection 1A, and 79, subsection 2, and 80 of the Public Financial Management Act, the Secretary to Treasury, as an accounting officer for the Ministry of Planning and Economic Development, should be held personally liable and make good of the loss. We fault the majority committee for using the word constrain. Constrain is cowardly. Constrain cannot be entertained by this Parliament because it's, what is it? The mandate we have before us is to either approve or reject. And the Parliament cannot be constrained to do what is mandated with us to do. Therefore, I beg to move that the only way to proceed is for Parliament to reject an illegality.
Thank you. Honorable Minister, you have the first response on this before I open. Procedure?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and honorable members. I have listened to the chair of the committee and the Honorable Kivumbi. Apart from trying to interpret, constrain, and so forth, my understanding of a minority report is that when a committee sits and considers a matter, and probably at the time of making recommendations, you differ in terms of how you are recommending, and then you write a minority report. But listening to both sides, in my view, what Honorable Kivumbi is recommending is the same as what the committee recommended. I'm saying in my view, not yours. Not yours, I'm saying in my view. So the procedural guidance I just wanted to seek from the Right Honorable Speaker is that you need to guide the committees on what really constitutes dissenting from the opinion of the main committee report. Because like what I see is that both the minority report and the majority report are basically saying the same thing but using different words. So I just wanted that guidance so that in the future, maybe members do not really take much of our time to present the same things just using different words. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. It's a procedural matter, Honorable. Unless Member for Casino would like to rule on it. Let me finish this and you speak. Honorable members, by listening to both reports is actually, you almost come to the same conclusion, that there is no big difference between the report of the committee and the minority opinion that has been given to the House. The question that the member raised, which is a point of departure, is can the committee be constrained to take a particular, give guidance to the House? And I think that's where the point is. Usually where a committee is unable, for whatever reason, to make a direct recommendation, usually what the committee does is to say, we were unable to make a conclusion on this matter. We recommend that the House takes a decision on this matter. That is usually what happens. But a committee can never be constrained. And neither can this House be constrained. You can, for whatever reason, you can have a split vote, you can have, you don't want to disintegrate the committee for whatever reason. You say, no, at a committee level, it's not even our decision is not even final, but these were our findings. But the decision, we will leave it for the House. We were unable to take a decision on this matter at committee level, but we recommend that the House takes the final decision on this matter. That would be a good way to get out of this situation than untie your legs and say, I can't jump. That would be a good way. But Kasile, you want to speak before? I wanted the minister to specifically respond to these issues, then we can open it up. Yes, Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker and honorable colleagues, I first of all want to thank the members of the Committee of Budget for the report and also the minority report by Honorable Chivumbi, who had earlier supported the motion. I thought he was going to support me even in the final decision. Members, I just wanted to remind colleagues that over time, we have been experiencing the issue of payroll management. We sit here, different accounting officers budget for salaries of their employees. In the middle of the year, you hear revisions, you hear ghosts, and I'm glad to let you know that the measures that were put in place has actually been able to save government resources to a tune of over 200 billion over the last 4 years. So we've made some good progress. In the middle of the year, you see accounting officers recruiting, promoting, and yet they never budgeted for these issues. So for this particular one, I'm giving you a background. I think it's important to understand this. So
please listen. Listen, then you talk.
So you find the government in a very, very, very tight situation. These are employees. They are being employed. They need their salaries. But the salaries is not budgeted for. Actually, I remember in 2015-16, before we ended, it was a huge debate in this House. And the minister was directed to clear all the areas when actually the budget has been passed. So what we did, we went ahead and made this provision. This money went to the pockets of employees. It went there. It is never went anywhere else. People received their salaries and they were working. So, Mr. Speaker and honorable colleagues, it is unfortunate that this supplementary was never submitted in time. And to that, I once again apologize. We have given reasons. One of the reasons you remember, as you stated in your communication, even reading the budget was a huge problem. The president had to appoint, on the advice of the speaker, a member of parliament from Chibale for Buyanja. You remember? It was extremely, a little bit difficult. So, Mr. Chairman, this supplementary was never submitted in the required time. We apologize for that. The circumstances have been stated. But to whether this money went for the rightful purpose, all of us should know that this money was meant to pay salaries, and we paid salaries to the employees who worked. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for the opportunity to explain this situation, and I plead to members that given the fact that these were salaries, they were salaries of employees who worked like you work, and they were paid. If you don't approve it, what will be the situation? I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister, there are three words: unabsorbable, unavoidable, and unforeseeable. Which one of these was that?
This was it was both unforeseeable and unavoidable. We didn't see this. coming, and it came. And when it came, we could not avoid it. Thank you.
Casilo was up then Bale municipality.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me start by just clarifying. You know, the Honorable Minister wants to use your words to justify the illegality which was committed.
Those words are in the law, not my words.
No, not those ones, because you had stated earlier on your preamble to the debate on this matter that there were challenges during the budget time. But I wanted to say that was a different matter. The issue of the minister dates back to December 2016. The issue of the swearing in, the reading the budget, was in June 2016, 2017. So, you don't mix up, don't bring the Speaker's complication to this one. Mr. Speaker, I don't want us to be constrained to make a decision on this. I think we are not constrained. We are going to take a decision on this one, and we shall not shy away. Both committees, both reports have stated what we should do. We cannot be accomplished to an illegality. What we can only do is to reject this and wait for the account for the Auditor General, because these matters are going to be audited, and we deal with the people who did not follow the law at that time, because we know this money has already been expended, people have already been paid, but we cannot be party to supporting an illegality. Party to an illegality, we shall not. The money has been paid, people have benefited, but the accounting officer, the people are responsible. I know the Auditor General is going to bring out this matter in the audited account. So, Mr. Speaker, we shouldn't even be wasting time here on this matter, because it's an illegality. We cannot continue debating on it. The Auditor General will audit it. People have been paid. If it was because of the inefficiency, if they violated the law, the report of the Auditor General will come to this House, and we deal with the people who have violated the law.
Bale municipality.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, this parliament makes laws, and we cannot turn around and break the laws we have made. The custodian of all financial regulations is the Minister of Finance and the PSST, and he knew that he would have come to this parliament, but he ignored that one, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to agree with the report of the minority report by Honorable Kivumbi. It's in the law that you cannot come around, turn around, and say you did not know that this expenditure will be there. Because all accounting officers, permanent secretaries, budget, and send the budget to the Minister of Finance, and you know how many people you are going to promote, how many people you are going to recruit, so you cannot confuse the House and say this was unforeseeable. You knew it, and the money was to be spent, but you ignored, and you brought in a supplementary 4 months later from the time required. So, Mr. Speaker, I ask the House that we reject this, but as my colleague has just said, the Auditor General has got a long hand and is going to find out who committed this, and we must hold the Secretary of Treasury for having committed this error. But this Parliament, being the legal custodian, cannot go ahead and pass the illegality. So we reject this totally, as the minority report said, and even the main report says they cannot even accept that one. So we agree and we reject this, and we shall hold those responsible, that's Secretary of Treasury. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mitoma.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Right Honorable Speaker, honorable members, we are coming to the end of the financial year, and it is important that matters, especially of to do with people's salaries and wages, are expeditiously dealt with. So I would imagine, I would think that...
Honorable, this is for financial year 2015-2016.
Right Honorable Speaker, it is still very important that these matters be retired as we move into the new financial year. Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. PWD Eastern.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, whereas I would sympathize with the ministry, it is a bit difficult to understand how recruitment really is not in a plan. Because when we pass policy statements, we are given information that these are the gaps we are going to fill, this is how we are going to do it, and this is how it will be covered. And now we bring 15, 16, and yet the audit is already supposed to be on. I find myself, and I want to declare, I'm constrained to support this supplementary. Even if I sit on this side, I'm not ready to do that. Thank you.
No, honorable members, but let's separate the issues, please. Let's separate the issues. Please. And the issue that both committees have agreed upon, that's the one we should discuss. The issue is not whether the situation was unforeseeable, because that one they've agreed. And the debate was here in 2015, where in the middle of the financial year, they did recruitment, which was not known at the beginning. That is a fact. I presided over here. Situations came where salary shortages just arose because in the middle of the financial year, the district had recruited, they had recruited without it having been in the plan. It came here and we debated this matter. But it happened. I'm informing you, the districts did that, it happened. Please, please. Yes, information.
Mr. Speaker, I came from a local government. I was a district chairperson for 15 years in the Kumi district. And the recruitments in local governments were not predictable. For example, a need could arise from health, the Minister of Health, and they would write to the district that recruit 32 health workers in this category. Then two, as we move now, Minister of Education wrote to Kumi District Local Government, recruit 40 primary teachers at this particular time. Now, as we are talking here in the Parliament, they have just concluded the interviews. Therefore, the payment, Mr. Speaker, I need to be protected. Please. Mr. Speaker, I need to be protected as I submit.
Point of order.
Right, Honorable Speaker, I was a district councillor myself. And the practice of this government has been that before you start the budget process, they send what we call IPF, indicative planning figure. And in that indicative planning figure, they will indicate the wage bill for you. So I am constrained to accept the assertion of my former LC5 chairman and to put him on order whether it would really be, it would be in order to be allowed to proceed to mislead the House. Thank you very much.
Honorable members, please. Honorable members, these are factual things. These are factual things. I was here and I was presiding when this matter came. It was a debate both from the Committee of Education, I remember, and also from local government that there were issues with the salaries. He said, but how did this arise? He said recruitment were done mid-term. It came here, honorable members. Let's not bury our heads in the sand on this. Because it actually happened. For that, even now as I speak, my own district, they have had to write. They had to write now specific, say there will be no recruitment. No district should recruit. Now they had to write clearly. So that is not the issue we are debating. Please. Because this, please. That is not the issue because that was improper practice and it caused a problem. The issue is that happened. The expenditure was unseeable and you did it. The question is, why did you not inform Parliament in time? That is the issue. So I want to separate the issues for you so that the debate is smooth. So let us not go to the issue of unforeseeable, unavoidable. Those ones are not material at this time because the debate happened here in 2015 and I was here. Now the question is, why did the accounting officer, having done this having spent this money on these things that were unforeseeable, why did the accounting officer not alert Parliament that within the time frame in the law that this has happened and we have spent money like this? The law requires me to inform you within 4 months. This is the information. That is the matter we should be debating, please. Okay? So no, you are still on the floor. That matter is resolved. So that is the only issue we are discussing. And if you start anything else, I will stop you. I promise you that. Let me start from Bukolli Island.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. A suggestion from a boss is always an order, and you have made it clear that the issue is, regardless of all that came in, why was Parliament not informed? And in fact, the only person with a good answer to give should be the ministry before we continue with the debate. So through you, Mr. Speaker, can the minister inform the House why they did not inform the House at that time, on time?
And you see, honorable members, the issue is an offense has been established. An offense has been established. One, that you should have done this within time frame, this time frame, 4 months. You did not do it. You should have done it in 4 months. You did it in December, which was over 6 months after the event. Okay? That is the issue. Now, if that is the issue, is there a remedy to it? Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, why was it not put, why did the accounting officer not send to Parliament in time? Is there an explanation that you can give to the House?
Procedure, Right Honorable Speaker.
Please. You need to respect the chair. You might be barred from speaking for the rest of your time.
Well, so, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
We have said at a political level that the situation which was pertaining then was that cabinet was not fully constituted.
Honorable Minister, please.
Order. Order.
Leave the issue of Parliament.
Mr. Speaker, I thought first the minister had understood us. We are all people who have gone to school. We know the calendars. We know the time and procedures. In December of that year, which cabinet are you talking about? Because we know the cabinet was constituted in June. But this matters in December. So is the minister in order to not to tell us the truth? And to confess us that in December of 2016, the cabinet was not constituted. If he does not have any answer to that, let him just consider and ask for an apology. As simple as that we made a mistake, and we proceed, other than not telling us the truth in this house. Is in order to continue not tell us the truth?
Honorable Minister, the issue is clear. Please, assist so that we can. You might get some sympathy from the House if you talk to the House properly, because an illegality was committed.
Okay. Mr. Speaker and honorable colleagues, a mistake was made. For the third time, I want to apologize to this House.
Kyoga?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister has apologized to the House, and I want to thank him for accepting the mistakes, because the illegality has already been committed. But, Mr. Speaker, I also wanted an assurance from the Honorable Minister that this matter will not repeat itself and be brought back to the floor in the similar manner it has come. Because what remedies do we have so that we don't have a repeat of this kind of thing again? I thought the Honorable Minister would help explain the measures they are taking as government so that we don't see this kind of scenario happening again.
And yes, Chua.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm the Vice Chairperson of Local Government Accounts. And my strong belief that this has already been captured in the Auditor General's report for 2015-2016. How are we going to proceed?
Are you sure it has been captured?
My strong belief is that it has been captured.
No, but you see...
So if the Auditor General has already handled the matter, which will come for the...
Where is the report? Because you are speaking as if you have seen the report.
We are actually starting to handle this report, Mr.
Has
Speaker,
it been, have this Parliament received audited accounts for financial year 2015-2016? Please. Kalungu.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you very much. And indeed, I want to thank the Minister. First of all, Honorable Hati, you are doing a good job in that ministry. But the Right Honorable Speaker, the most important issue here is this one. Some of these people, the technocrats, accounting officers, seem to think that they are above Parliament. They want to take themselves stronger than ministers. I think your apology has weight. And my plea, my prayers, Mr. Speaker, let us ask these accounting officers to know that ministers are above them. And they should not think that Parliament is a mere institute of coming here to get a salary and rubber stamp. That's what is happening in the Treasury, and I'm going to say the PSST thinks that is above the rest of the people. We have seen it so many people. The late Kasami was a composite person. This is the work of the technocrats to bring such records, and then you move. Because there is no justification of what you are saying. And I want to thank you, Honorable Hati, that you are trying to steer the ministry kindly work. But please, let the PSST, that is Seungu Joseph Gonzaga saying this. We have had a lot of issues. No, you are giving information? Speaker, let me conclude. Because you can imagine the situation of the Speaker, members of Parliament, and you yourself, by the way. That's what is generating a minority report. Let me take one for more.
Honorable members, an authority of an act of Parliament has not been honored. That particular responsibility was owed to Parliament. The sanctions to the person concerned would not fall under the category where you pay the money yourself, because that is not part of this. It's a violation that usually where such violation is done by a person who is not a member of the House. This House can agree to call that person to apologize to it directly from the bar there. We can agree to say this is one of those matters where we need a direct apology from the officer to the House. Then we will invite him on a day appointed, draw the bars, he renders the apology from the bar, and the House will accept the apology, then we let him go. Would that be a good way to go? Would that be a good, because it is not a financial matter. It's not a financial matter. And the four committees have agreed on this. Both the minority report and the main report have agreed it's not really a financial breach. It is an issue of this particular. This might be a good way to handle this situation. Yes.
As I conclude, and let me conclude on our members.
Yeah. Thank you, Honorable, for giving way. The information I wanted to give is that actually a very bad precedent is likely to be set by this honorable House if we allow those public officers to continue with impunity. I have a very nasty experience at one of the committee sessions where an officer came and told us that the money is already spent. So why should we even waste our time? The money is already spent. If it's up to us to approve the supplementary or not, I think this is not acceptable, and it really doesn't reflect well on the relationship between Parliament and the institutions, the government ministries and agencies.
Yeah. So, as I conclude, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for your wise guidance, and still, even with the contingency fund, Parliament rules, and someone refuses, with all the authority we have here. You see, when you see me standing here representing the people of Kalungu, it's not a mere sort of going for prayers alone. I'm legislating. And when we direct, we must be respected. And Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you very much for what you have stated that can sort out those issues. But you imagine, in the Auditor General's report, everywhere they have refused to set up a contingency fund, people are suffering because of one particular person. And we started panicking because when you talk about this one, he will send people to give people standing against you to win you. That cannot arise here. We must fight and make this country move. Thank you, Right Honourable Speaker.
Dokolo.
Right Honourable Speaker, I'm just seeking a clarification. I really appreciate that the Minister has apologized to the House, but he has not apologized to the law. However, I just want to draw the attention to this House to Article 79 on the offense. Sorry, 78.
Section,
yeah, 78, subsection 2, where it is established, which we have now done, that the institution or department did not meet the requirements of this act or contravene the act due to negligence or misconduct of a public officer of the institution or the department. The public officer shall be held personally liable in accordance with Section 79 or Section 80 of this act. However, now that the minister has apologized, do we now how do we apply this? Because this is now law. I just want clarification on that.
Are you going to rule on that? Honorable members, that is it. This breach is not financial. It's a matter of conduct. And the section quoted by the Honourable Member for Dokholo is actually the applicable section. Now, what I propose to the House is that the minister has apologized, but the minister is not the one liable. The solution can be what I have proposed as a sanction, a kind of, because this is what we can do as Parliament. Because you can say, go and write in the papers and apologize, but that's not for us. Okay? What I'm proposing, it's what can be done. It can be done to a member of the press, it can be done to anybody from the public who has offended Parliament in any way. You call them and they render an apology from the bar. That would be how you handle the provision of Section 78(1). Would that be acceptable? Because if it is acceptable, then we deal with the financial matters and then appoint a day when the officer will be called. Because if he doesn't, there are implications. If he doesn't, there are implications. Would that be a good way to go? No, I don't need to, I'm not pushing this on the members. I'm just making a suggestion which is, yes, Casilo.
Yes, if members, if the House accepted that, does that mean to say that we go ahead and approve and adopt the report or reject the recommendation of the report? Before I make up that decision, I wanted to know. Or we wait until he comes and makes that decision. No, what is?
What I was saying was the violation is not financial. So we can deal with the matter of the finances and finish. But if you think the officer is so errant that he might not come after we have approved, then you can take an appropriate. But my suggestion would be, honorable members, no officer who has been given this way out would object to coming to render an apology to the House.
Maybe clarification.
Yes, Castillo, please wind up.
Clarification,
Now.
Speaker. Clarification,
Please
Speaker.
wind up. Castillo.
Just clarification, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I just wanted to be clarified from this, before we make a decision. If we do not pass this supplementary, will it be injurious to anybody or not? Because to me, I think whether we pass it or we don't pass it, it's not injurious to us, because this money was for the last financial year, and it was for salaries. It has already been paid. It has already been paid to the people who were recruited. So, though it's an illegality, we don't want to be party to it. It has already been passed. People are continuing to earn their salaries. So even if we go by the committee report, it is not injurious to anybody, because the money is there. As we wait for the PS to appear here, but also wait for the accountability committee to deal with it. So I don't want just us to be to justify this illegality, because to me it's no consequence, because people already got the money, they are continuing to get the money.
No, you see, honorable members, the illegality is not on the money. You see, the illegality is not on the money. You see, please. The illegality is not on the money. It's on the conduct of not informing Parliament early. You see, so that's why I'm proposing, because you see, it is this Parliament that closes the accounts of a financial year. I am not even sure whether the Auditor General can audit accounts that are not closed. The audit would be partial. It would not be complete, because the accounts for that financial year are not closed. Parliament has not closed it. It's open. It can be, but it will still be coming back to Parliament that you did not close the accounts of this financial year. So why don't we deal with what we are supposed to do and have the person who caused that non-financial illegality to come and render an apology to the House? We close the financial year instead of leaving it open.
Right, Honorable Speaker. The idea of bringing the technical person to apologize to the House, I object to it. Because really we don't have any direct supervision on those people. Whatever they do, we have appointed persons whom we deal with here on a daily basis. We don't only have one minister, we have several ministers who supervise this sector we are talking about. When we call this person here, we are really demoralizing him. He's doing his normal duty, and he has got supervisors, political supervisors, who should be supervising them on our behalf. Right, Honorable Speaker, I don't want this Parliament to intimidate people who are professionally trained and are doing their job professionally. If they do outside the law, we have got people, we have got ministers who should do. I want the minister who is responsible for this particular docket to come and apologize.
Order.
And the Minister of Finance, not Mukaizi. We have nothing to do with him.
Honorable members, please. The section that the member for Dokolo read says the public officer shall be held personally liable in accordance with section 7. So, really, what is personal liability? Really? If this is a way we should go, can we proceed?
The minister is vicarious.
The minister, but not personally liable. And the minister has done his political part of rendering that apology for the mistake. So that we finish with the finances. Please. So that we finish with the finances and leave that issue. If the members want to excuse, yes, member who moved the minority report.
Chair, I know Mr. Speaker, Right Honorable Speaker, I know we are trying to treat a vice. And a behavior that has been consistent and an abuse where we are literally losing a lot of money. It has forced the President of the Republic of Uganda, in the declaration of Chisanja Hakuna Mchezo, to write to the Prime Minister about this irregular recruitment and gave a very strong directive, because he was informed the country annually loses upwards of 200 billion, and that disrupts normal budgeting. However, the person we are talking about is Secretary to Treasury, who is at the pinnacle of our financial matters. Now, bring him to this parliament to apologize. We'll send a statement to any accounting officer in this country. Any accounting officer in this country. Information, then I conclude. Okay.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi, for giving way. Mr. Speaker, sir, I agree with your guidance to the House, and just like Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi has said, it is indeed something that honorable members should not fear. I found it very, very touching that the Minister of Finance had to stand and apologize over culpability and negligence of a public officer. The apology here, Mr. Speaker, sir, does not negate the fact that additional disciplinary procedure can be undertaken by the supervisors of the PS. Yes. The Uganda government standing orders provide for a procedure under which, after taking the apology here, that the minister who supervises the PS will still follow up and ask for additional measures to be taken against the PS. Thank you.
Right, Honorable Speaker. Now, with your indulgence, if the Parliament finds it within its wisdom to have the minister, to have the accounting officer come here and apologize, my humble opinion, that would have sent a huge signal and statement of intent that Parliament will no longer tolerate these kinds of behavior. And that will be a milestone, I think, in the history of this Parliament. Secondly, the supervisory officers, maybe the minister, who is responsible, should also follow suit with an apology also. In writing. That one will be kind enough and say it should be in writing, and he raised it here on table. We will not subject our colleague to that level because he's not an accounting officer. And the act is very clear. It doesn't talk about the supervisor. It says an accounting officer should be culpable for this offense. But to make sure we really even hold those who are politically supervising these officers, the minister will come with a humble letter of apology to accompany. But also, Right Honorable Speaker, punishment, for it to be felt, is immediate. You know, I studied management. We have reward and punishment procedures. If you want to punish somebody, it should be immediate. Rest, you will be seen like you are victimizing. Even at home, as you punish a kid for a wrong, it should be normally immediate. The house is still on. We are here up to about, we have other matters. Let the accounting officer come here today. Today. And tender this apology. And tender this apology. Then thereafter, Parliament will pronounce itself on this matter. I beg to move.
But practically speaking, suppose he's not in the country.
Chair, if the accounting officer is not in the country.
Because what usually happens, we take the decision, we extract the minute and transmit and appoint a date when this can be done. We should not do it like now, because these breaches were done 2 years ago. Clarification from who, Honorable Member for Mitoma? Clarification from who?
Thanks.
Procedure.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker. You have always guided correctly that we should not debate in anticipation. This is a working day. It is actually before lunchtime now. And this is a very, very important matter. 18 billion shillings is a lot of money. We have all accepted there is an illegality that was done, and the minister was actually candid enough to come and apologize. Right Honorable Speaker, isn't it procedural correct for us for you to suspend this House for a few minutes and allow time for the accounting officer to come and apologize, then we proceed. Thank you very much.
Further procedure. Further procedure.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. Would it be procedurally correct to require an accounting officer to come to this House when the accounting officer reports directly to the minister and the minister is responsible to this House? Would it rather not be...
Order.
Would it rather...
Honorable members, please. You should sense when we are trying to find a solution that is okay for the House. I think we should be sensible or sensitive, not sensible. We should be sensitive when the guidance being given is to find middle ground so that we can move. Because this is not a personal matter, but the law says personal liability. And we are trying to deal with the issues raised by the minority report in a way that does not impose other charges on the accounting officer. Please.
Right Honorable Speaker, the accounting officer can be required to write a letter through the minister rather than require him to come here and face Parliament.
Order. Order, Right Honorable Speaker. Order. Order.
The honorable member is not in order. If that is the order you were raising. Can we proceed? Let's proceed. Please, let's proceed. This matter, we have found a solution to it. Please, let's proceed. Please. And that includes the member for Padiere. Please, let's proceed. So, a decision has been taken by this House that we have found that there is a problem with the conduct of a particular officer in relation to transmission of a particular report to Parliament within the time proposed by the law. And there are sanctions imposed for such conduct in the law under section 78 and 79 of the Public Management Act. And we have proposed, and we could agree, that that punishment that this House will give will be for the officer to render an apology to the House. Is that what we have agreed? Yes. Okay, that is the agreement. Clerk, extract the minutes and notify the accounting officer. An appropriate date will be found when the officer will come to the House and render that apology. Now, can we go to the next level? Finish with the issue of the appropriation. Because they say the misconduct was not financial. The misconduct was in relation to other issues of procedure. Okay? Can we, because the minority report, I would like the minority report mover to confirm if there is a problem with the money or the chair.
Right Honorable Speaker, you guided earlier and said, because I put another criteria, I said that the criteria for supplementary was not also followed. But, as you've said, sometimes you have to be sensitive, because these were officers who are recruited in our local government. And they do a good job. They are health officers, they are district officers. But they happen to have been paid. Much as the criteria of unforeseeable, unobservable, unavoidable could also be faltered. But that's something we can live with.
Thank you. Chair?
Right Honorable Speaker, on paragraph 4.0, sources of funding, we noted that this was a reallocation within the approved budget because they were just transferring staff from one department to others. So it was within the approved budget. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I don't think we can go again to reappropriate because that money was already appropriated at that time.
So,
there's technical reallocation.
No. There's a supplementary that has been
Yes.
requested for. That's what we are talking about.
Yeah, the one we are talking about. There's no
Was
problem.
there a problem with the supplementary?
There's no problem. Even the finance, there's no problem.
Okay, thank you. So, honorable members, can we take a decision to supply the supplementary and they'll finish with it, then we wait for this other part to be done? Would that be a good way to go? I'll now put the question to the motion that the House resolves it to the Committee of Supply to consider the supplementary expenditure schedule 2 for the financial year 2015-2016. I put the question, will those in favor say aye, to the contrary, no? The ayes have it. Are the figures there?
Yes.
The figures are there? Okay, then let's go and supply.
Committee of Supply. The recurrent supplementary expenditure for financial year 2015-2016, supplementary expenditure schedule number 2.
Honorable members, I propose the question that the total sum of shillings 18,862,390,075 shillings under recurrent wages provided for as supplementary expenditure for financial year 2015-2016. I now put the question that the total sum of shillings 18,862,390,075 shillings under recurrent wages be provided for as supplementary expenditure for financial year 2015-2016. I put the question, will those in favor say aye, to the contrary, no? The ayes have it.
Supplementary expenditure schedule number 2, financial year 2015-2016.
Mrs. Chairman. Okay, that was all.
Report from the committee. Motion for the House to resume.
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Chair and honorable colleagues, I move that the House do resume and the Committee of Supply reports thereto.
Honorable members, the motion for resumption of the House to enable the Committee of Supply report. I put the question to that motion. Will those in favor say aye, to the contrary, no? The ayes have it.
Report from the Committee of Supply.
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to report that the Committee of Supply has considered supplementary Schedule 2 and passed it.
Motion.
Motion for adoption of the report from the Committee of Supply.
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the House adopts the report of the Committee of Supply.
Honorable members, I put the question for adoption of the report of the Committee of Supply. Will those in favor say aye, to the contrary, no? The ayes have it. Thank you very much, honorable members. Thank you, honorable minister. But the order will be extracted and transmitted as stated. Thank you. Next item.
Motion that the House resolves itself into a committee of supply to consider the supplementary expenditure Schedule 1 and 2 for financial year 2016-2017.
Honorable Minister.
Mr. Speaker and honorable colleagues, I beg to move that the House resolves itself into a committee of supply to consider the supplementary expenditure Schedule 1 and 2 for the financial year 2016-17.
Honorable Minister, do we have a report for Schedule 2, Chair?
It's ready.
Chair?
Schedule 1.
No, Schedule 2.
No.
Schedule 2 is not there. So can you amend your motion, Honorable Minister, please? It's only Schedule 1 that is there.
Okay. Mr. Speaker and honorable colleagues, I beg to move that the House resolve itself into a committee of supply to consider supplementary expenditure Schedule 1 for the financial year 2016-2017.
Is the motion seconded? Seconded by Kinkizi East, Samia Bugwe South, Sembabule District, even Amolata District. And on this side, yes, Honorable Member for Aruka. Would you like to speak to your motion? Honorable Minister, you would like to speak to your motion?
Mr. Speaker and honorable colleagues, Parliament appropriated the budget for financial year 2016-17, and during its implementation, we were faced with some unavoidable expenditures that we had to incur in order to implement the budget and fulfill the priorities which were set by this House and by government. A schedule was submitted here. The Committee of Budget has considered it and is ready to report to this House for debate. I beg to move.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. Members, the motion that I propose for your debate is a motion that the House resolves itself in the Committee of Supply to consider the supplementary expenditure schedule, consider supplementary expenditure Schedule 1 for financial year 2016-2017. That is the motion for your debate. This matter was referred to the committee to start our debate. Can the committee report? Chair, briefly.
Right, Honorable Speaker and honorable members, on the 21st December 2016, the government read before Parliament supplementary expenditure estimate, schedule number 1, amounting to 255,722,000,000, and they referred to the committee. Mr. Speaker and honorable members have it on the iPads. Methodology, we interact with agencies which were receiving the supplementary expenditure. Now on the legal framework and the status of compliance, the one we have been discussing, the supplementary estimates were laid in accordance with Section 25 of Public Finance and Management Act as amended 2015. The total supplementary expenditure that requires additional resources over and above what is approved by Parliament shall not exceed 3% of approved budget for financial year without approval of Parliament. B, where funds are expended under Section 1, the supplementary estimate showing the sum spent shall be read before Parliament within 4 months after the money was expended. Right, Honorable Speaker and honorable members, the committee notes that Parliament approved a total budget of 26.36 trillion for financial 2016-17. a total sum of 255 billion 722 million, and this schedule represent 0.97% of approved budget, which is within the law. Out of the supplementary, 91.6 billion, representing 35.8, is for recurrent expenditure, and 164 billion, 164.1 development, representing 62.2 of the expenditure. On the second page 3, we have the agencies receiving the money. The schedule is there. Table 1, Office of the President and many of the members can read. Then we go to development, Minister of Finance, those are votes which received. They are also on table 1B. Now, sources of funding the supplementary expenditure. The committee was informed by the Minister that the supplementary expenditure under Schedule number 1, 2016-17 has been financed through separation of allocation to other votes and reallocation. The separation and reallocation were duly endorsed by Cabinet. So, Mr. Speaker and honorable members, you can read the justification, those votes which you got. Vote 001, Office of the President, it got 5.6 billion for classified expenditure. State House, 15.66 billion. Prime Minister's Office received 10 billion for procurement of relief, emergency food relief for people in famine-stricken region in the country, regions in the country. Minister of Finance had 6.25 billion. There was an appropriation in aid, and there is also money to kickstart the Ministry of Science and Technology and Innovation. The Ministry of Trade, they also have requirement there of 0.477 billion. Stemma University, 1.825. Muni University, 0.895. UNEB, 7.2 billion. Makerere University, 22.1 billion. Barari University, 1.87 billion. Makerere University Business School, 3.15 billion. Chambogo University, 4.4 billion. Uganda Management Institute, 0.894 billion. Uganda Revenue Authority.
There's Gulu University.
Yes, right, Honorable Speaker. There is Guru University, which had 3.3 billion. There is Uganda Revenue Authority was given 6 billion for bonus payment to government team that's successfully representing Uganda in the case against Heritage Oil and Gas Limited in London. The payment was challenged and the matter was referred to Committee on Statutory Authorities and State Enterprises by the Speaker for further investigation. The committee is yet to receive the report. The House is yet to receive the report. ISO got 1.085 billion. Permanent mission to Dar es Salaam, 0.159. Permanent mission to UN Geneva, 0.8 billion. Development expenditure. Minister of Works and Transport got 24 billion. Was provided for upfront fees and insurance for the purchase of Japanese moving equipment for district and urban authorities. The payment was made in respect to a financing agreement between the Japan Bank of International Cooperation and Sumitomo Mitsui Banking Corporation as a lender and the government of Uganda to provide a buyer credit to facilitate the borrower with a requirement to pay a non-refundable upfront fee and assurance against political and commercial risk. Honorable members, you recall that 22 billion was provided in the budget of 2016 for counterpart funding for the above activities. However, it did not include both upfront fees and assurance as a prerequisite for accessing the facility. Right, Honorable Speaker, Minister of Finance had 95.9 billion. 77.251 billion was payment for tax expenditure to URA companies granted tax waiver by government. The breakdown is as follows. There is table 2. But for emphasis, BIDICO got, they paid for BIDICO 5.5 billion 855 million 236,312 million shillings as corporation tax. IA investment got 3.74 billion as import tax. Steel and the Tube Industries Limited got 1.5 billion corporation tax. Quality Chemicals got 29.83 billion corporation tax. Southern Range Nyanza got 6.747 import duty. Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited got 5.3 stamp duty, and the Uganda Electricity Transmission Company 4.2, that is stamp duty. Mr. Chairman, Honorable Speaker and honorable members, evidence available to the committee in support of expenditure were as follows. BIDICO. An agreement between the government of Uganda and the BIDICO Oil Refineries Limited arrived after an open bidding. As a party, there was an agreement. A set of negotiations were held since 1997 to a time the agreement was signed on 4th April 2003. The project, which aimed at producing and processing palm oil on Kalangala Island, is reported to be fully operational and now expanding to new areas including Vuma Island. Article 5 of the agreement awards a range of incentives to BIDICO, including corporation tax for 25 years from the first year of the project activities. Mr. Speaker and honorable members, when we looked at the agreement, it was talking about the other taxes, but the corporation tax was not mentioned. So the committee recommended that circumstances and procedure followed by granting the exemption are not legally supported. IA Investment Limited, a letter dated July 29, 2015, written by Minister of Finance to the company extending the period of exemption of taxes, or payment of taxes and duties of hotel equipment and materials for Hilton Hotel project up to 31st December 2015. The circumstances and the procedures also followed were not legally supported. Steel and the tube industry, we did not see any supporting document. Quality Chemicals Industry Limited, a letter dated 31st May 2010, communicating a government decision to pay on behalf of the company taxes on their business chargeable income for a period of 10 years effective 1st July 2009. The exemption does not meet the legal requirements as Article 154.1. Southern Range Nyanza, a letter also was raised confirming a decision by government to pay VAT and import duty on raw materials for textile manufacturers, but it did not meet the text of exemption. Right, Honorable Speaker and honorable members, the committee declined the approval of tax waiver of BIDICO Quality Chemicals, Aya Investment, Steel and the Tube, Southern Range, Nyaza, amounting to 47,705,980,630 shillings. This expenditure has been already incurred and therefore it should be treated as a loss to government. Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited and the Uganda Electricity Transmission Company Limited. The committee was informed that funds paid by government were in lieu of stamp duty, although no supporting documents were available to the committee. Right Honorable Speaker and members, basically this stamp duty was in respect of transfer of land for substations which the government is constructing. There is one down here, Queensway and many others. The committee approved this expenditure as an intervention to extend power supply to the population. Government is urged to budget for this tax expenditure in normal budgeting process. 22 billion was a payment to Uganda Investment Authority for compensation of squatters in Mbale Industrial Park. 16.5 billion was payment to facilitate the completion and the operationalization of pilot banana processing plant under PIB. The table is also indicated on table 3. The breakdown and the amounts are there, Right Honorable Speaker and members. The committee was informed that an outstanding of shilling 6.8 billion to commission phase 1 was requested but not provided by the Minister of Finance. This would delay commissioning of the projects. The committee was further informed that the land title pertaining to the ownership of this project has been handed over to Minister of Finance. And Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable members, the documents, copies are all here. And this I beg to
let the records capture that.
Minister of Local Government was given 1.7 billion to cater for outstanding balances under International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD loan. Minister of Energy and Mineral Development was given 2.5 for National Oil and Company for its management and the core board activities. UNRA was given 33 billion to complete projects like Fort Porto, Nyakahita Road, Kampala Express Highway, civil works on Mukono Katosi Road. This was necessitated by the government commitment to pay the project affected person by November 2016 as agreed by World Bank. UNRWA, however, did not have sufficient funds in their budget, hence the supplementary request. Uganda Land Commission was given 6.9 billion and the payment was made to outstanding compensation claim to Kampala Archdiocese regarding the land occupied by Entebbe International Airport. To date, Uganda shillings 27.475 billion has been paid to Kampala Archdiocese. Observations and recommendations, Right Honorable Speaker. Number 1, most MDs explained that their supplementary expenditure needs were foreseen, but unfunded and unabsorbable through the environment, yet they could have not avoided them. It is against this background that they requested for additional funding, which was granted by Minister of Finance. The committee was concerned that the Minister of Finance had not exercised sufficient due diligence in granting approval for some of the expenditure requests. The committee advised the Minister that in the future will be required to exercise maximum restraint in granting future supplementary approval to avoid unnecessary distortion in the budget appropriated by Parliament. PIPID. The committee observed that PIPID and the Minister of Finance duly complied and they submitted the documents, the one I've laid. A land title was given. The committee also, we looked through the document, but however, we noted that there was no legal instrument for PIPID to operate as the executive instrument issued by the President on 7th December 2010 for a period of 5 years expired. So the committee therefore withhold approval of this expenditure amounting to 16,651,128,028 shillings. Number 3, the committee observed that the government, in support of tax incentive to these strategic areas, but we have seen some documents on these tax expenditures. The committee, after scrutinizing the documents, honorable members noted that majority of these companies do not meet the requirement of the law, particularly Article 159(5) of the Constitution, which provides that subject to the provision of this Constitution, no agreement, contract, treaty, convention, or document by whatever name called to government is party or in respect of which government has an interest shall be concluded without legal advice from Attorney General, except in such cases and subject to such condition as Parliament may by law prescribe. Based on this provision, only Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited and Uganda Electricity Transmission Company Limited, because they are government entities, they met the test. Accordingly, out of 777.2 billion released for tax expenditure, the committee recommends only 29,551,909,324 that the House should approve. The balance of 47,705,980,600 should be treated as loss of government fund, public fund, and should be recovered from companies that benefited from the waiver. For the avoidance of doubt, the schedule below summarizes the list of companies and the amount recovered by URI. The ones, right, Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, I read. It is on table number 3. The committee recommends the approval of 6 billion provided for bonus payment to government team that represented Uganda in the case of against Heritage Oil and Gas in London, be stayed until such a time the House pronounces itself on the finding of the investigation by COSAS on this matter. In conclusion, Right Honorable Speaker and Honorable Members, the total amount applied for appropriation is 255,722,150,266, of which 91,601,666,341 is the current expenditure, and the shillings 164,120,483,924 development expenditure. From the committee's analysis, shillings 8 billion applied for 6 billion applied for URA because the matter is still under investigation, and we say we should stay the approval. The committee therefore recommends that a sum of 185,365,41,608, comprising 85,601,666,341 current expenditure, and 99,763,375,267 development expenditure under Schedule now 1, 2016-17 be up for supplementary appropriation. Right, Honourable Speaker and Honourable Members, I beg to.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Very clear report, giving good guidance to the House. Honourable members, it's a normal time we break and resume at 2 o'clock. So House suspended to 2 o'clock.
Because they have a minority.